Situation, you might not automatically just throw on gloves as you're walking over, but then when you get here, hey, what's going on? And then it shows you as a pretty good lack and it's bleeding, okay? So now you say, okay, I'm putting on gloves. But just scene safety, body substance isolation, PPE, personal protective equipment, whatever you want to say, I'm putting on gloves, okay? Okay, so I have my gloves on. All right, oh, it looks like you got a pretty good cut there. Okay, so let me clean it up for you a little bit, put some ointment on it, and we'll wrap it up, okay? So you can just verbalize it or just demonstrate it, okay? So obviously we're not going to have water at the test, but what we will have potentially is a water bottle that says like tepid, pure water, whatever, okay? So I'll be sitting there. And then, again, if you're working in a sporting environment, this is a good thing to invest in. It's just a saline wash, okay? So this is good for debridement or just cleaning out any type of injuries. Right, so you would say, I'm going to use my saline wash. I'm going to clean it first. Okay. You're going to immediately grab gauze, direct pressure. Okay. All right, and then, oh, go ahead.
You'll probably be cued. It's still bleeding.
Okay, so what do we do if it's still bleeding? Don't remove it, right? So keep it there. So and then you would say, okay, I'm just going to put more gauze on here. Okay, direct pressure.
And it's still bleeding through?
Still bleeding. Okay, I'm just going to put more gauze on there. And this is really what you can do. Just a handful of it, pack it down. Right? Now, ideally, this doesn't happen, even with paramedics, is you would want, well, depending on the injury, but for most injuries, you just have gauze that comes in just a box, and they're not all individually sealed, okay? So just kind of like gloves. But ideally, these are obviously oversized, but they have gauze pads, sterile gauze, right? So they haven't been exposed to the environment. So again, depending on the severity of the cut, like if it's somebody has a cut, it's like a compound fracture, you definitely would want to use a sterile gauze pad, right? Just because the bone's exposed, you're completely exposed to the inside of the arm. If it's just a laceration that's bleeding, you can just use the regular gauze that hopefully is not dirty for any reason other than just not being sterile and unexposed to the external environment. But this is what you'll have on the test, so just use this. Don't even worry about the sterile gauze, okay? So pack it on, keeping pressure, and then you'll get cued, okay, bleeding stopped. Okay, so now that the bleeding stopped, you can secure it. You'll have triangular bandage. Right, so first you want to secure where you have the gauze. Okay, so again, you can just ask them to hold it for the test. Right?
Even a patient that you have in real life, you can tell them, just hold this right here. They'll understand that.
Actually, before I tighten that, okay? I'm just going to check the pulse here. Okay, go ahead and wiggle your fingers for me. Good, close your eyes. Finger am I touching?
Ring finger.
Finger am I touching? Okay. And then last thing, capillary refill. So just squeeze the nail beds. I'm looking for venous return less than 2 seconds, so about 1 second. So say less than 2, 1 second, just anything less than 1, more than 2 is going to be wrong. Okay, so you're safe in that area.
To add on to that, let's say you're working with females, or a female has come to your office with a cut, and they have their fingers painted, their nails are painted, you're not going to be able to see it through the nail itself. So if you go on the sides of the finger, you will always be able to see that.
Okay. As long as you're squeezing the most distal portion of that extremity, you'll get a proper cap refill time. Okay, so now once you've done PMSC, then you can secure the dressing here. Always just do this first because it helps keep the gauze in place.
It's also keeping direct pressure on the actual bleed itself.
Then you'll have ACE bandage. Okay. What's 2 things with the ACE bandage that I don't want to do? Well, what's the main thing?
Tension.
Tension, but where am I starting? Distal. Okay, so you start up here. I mean, there's not much you can fail on with this test, but if you start up here, it's automatic fail. Okay, because it's really one of the only things. All right, so make sure you start distal. What's another thing? What if I, for some reason, want to wrap his fingers? Right? So you don't want to wrap his fingers. But it's going to be pretty simple. If the wound is here, you'll know. Just wrap below, okay? Try to keep them rolled up. Obviously, it's easier. Okay. Okay, and then we don't have fancy Velcro or fasteners, so just tuck it in. Okay. And the last thing, inconspicuously laying around, an ice pack. Okay. So then you just demonstrate that I'm going to place ice over the wound. Okay.
You can also elevate the injury if it is not a fracture and it is stable.
Yep. Good. Right. So ice, elevate. Right.
And then at the very end, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then the last thing is. What's the last thing I'm going to do?
PMSC again?
PMSC. Okay, so now that this is on, I want to make sure that I didn't compromise. Okay, so okay, can you move your fingers for me? Finger am I touching? Close your eyes. Finger am I touching? Okay. And then cap your toe. So again, just squeezing the nail beds, squeezing the sides. Okay. Wound wrapping. Any questions? Pretty simple? Okay. Oh, yeah.
How does distal growth